this was a day we were really looking forward to.
Yeah, no lie.
It's always a lot of fun when a new Nicholas Sparks movie comes out. Whole lot of fun. And it doesn't help that they're getting longer now, apparently.
Yeah, no lie.
Yeah, that's just great. So, let's just go right into this. We have 3 movies for today, actually. One of which is not the movie I was building up before, because I overslept today. But
That happens.
Okay, let's start with The Longest Ride. Have you ever seen a movie based on Nicholas Sparks' book? Okay, then I probably don't need to go through the plot synopsis now.
Not really.
Basically, we have Britt Robertson, who's this up-and-coming thing that might... she might take off, she might not. It's just one of those cases. And then we have Scott Eastwood, who is, Clint's son, who was in Fury, which was in the same video as the last Nicholas Sparks movie review, which I love so much. Remember The Best of Me?
Oh, God.
Yeah!
Is it going to be that long? We'll find out.
Anyway, my lungs physically hurt after I talked about The Best of Me. Like, I had to lay down for like 2 or 3 days because The Best of Me just took my soul out. I'm exaggerating, but you get what I mean. And naturally, because he's Scott Eastwood and he looks the way that he does, he is the cowboy that everybody fawns over. Making Clint Eastwood's son a cowboy. You all are so clever, by the way. So, and there's a second story going on here where they're on their first date and they find Alan Alda in a car wreck. And they save him. And through letters that he's written, because apparently when you write to your loved ones, you just write your life story that she already knows to her. Okay. He likes having these letters read to him so he can relive his life because he's pretty much done with the rest of it. And we get to see his story in flashback, and they're kind of going parallel, but they may also mirror each other, which means you're getting the same shitty movie twice in one. Yeah. Which takes the movie's runtime to like 2 hours and 10 minutes. Yeah. Great. This is all adding up to so much greatness, isn't it? Okay, so pretty much every single thing that happens in a Nicholas Sparks story is not forgotten. There's a lot of rain. There's no actual kissing in the rain, but the rain is present constantly and just spontaneously. Like there's actually a moment where they're like outside in like this little shelter, and then they're done whatever they're doing, so they have to run from one place to the other, and they're standing here in the opening, and then it just starts to rain, and they're like, "Oh man, it's raining, we better run," and they start to run through the rain, and the scene ends. Like, why? You know what? Because I'm sure it takes at least a little bit of effort to, make rain happen when you're doing a movie. Unless it just happens spontaneously and you just went with it. If you're going to have the characters just say, "Oh, it's raining, let's run," and then 3 seconds later, your rain scene is over. Okay, as long as it was in there, though, they felt like they were making a Nicholas Sparks movie, and that's all that matters. That's it. Now, of course, predictability goes to all aspects. Like, we have... Like, the first 10 or 15, maybe even 20 minutes of this movie is just montages of people in cowboy hats and cowboy boots and dancing and drinking beer. And immediately I thought, somebody's going to be going to church really, really soon. They were Jewish, but it still counts because they were in a place of worship. I think it still counts, right?
Close enough.
Okay. It was in the other story. It was in the Alan Alda flashback story, where he's played by, I'm pretty sure that was Jack Houston. Jack Houston, bringing me 80s era Depp vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was almost distracting. I was like, man, he's really reminding me of 80s era Johnny Depp right now. And in the next movie I talk about, we're not done with 80s era Johnny Depp. So,
nope.
You can probably guess where exactly this movie goes, because this is what happens. Okay, are you ready? she meets him. He's at a rodeo, and he's doing his thing, and she's watching. And then, you know, his hat falls off, and she takes it. And he's like, "Yeah, you keep it, because I'm gonna fuck you later, and you're gonna definitely want to after I've given you my hat." And he walks away, and she just totally, you know, goes with it. And everybody's, you know, fawning over him because he's a cowboy and does all the thing, dresses in flannel tucked into his jeans, and wears the hat and shit, has his Army Hammer eyes. So, now, anyway, we have to have that scene where she and the girls are together and they're being all girly. They're giggling about cowboys are amazing. And she's talking about the fact that she can't start a relationship right now because she's moving to New York in a month for work. So, she's just, you know, she's playing pool and she's just like, I am not going to get involved with anything because I do not need distractions right now. This is not a time for distractions. Which, in movie talk, especially if it's a Nicholas Sparks movie, means I need a dicking right fucking now. In a really, really complicated relationship. Right this very, very second. And, yes, if you think it doesn't deliver, then you've never seen one of these movies in your life. And I would just like to point out, while we're talking about her friends that, you know, thrive on being really, really girly, because that's just what their character traits are. She lives in a sorority house, and I love the fact of how this was handled. Because I gotta fast forward a little bit and tell you about the scene where they're on their first date, and the girls have already fawned all over him because he's got his cowboy hat on, and his flannel's tucked into his jeans. And they're driving away, and he's cracking wise about the fact that she lives in a sorority house, and he's like, so, that's not what I imagined. I imagined more like, pillow fights in underwear. You know, because that's what sorority houses are in for. But, you know, them still running around scantily clad and fawning over cowboys, and it's every single one of them, too. There is not one single one of these girls, number one, that's unattractive, and number two is kind of lingering in the back going, cowboys aren't for me. No. Do not exist.
Nope.
Everybody fawns over the cowboy. So, if one exists, and then you try to kind of poke fun at the sorority house lifestyle and what it's kind of perceived as, that's not really adding up. At least in my eyes. But, you know, whatever. So, okay. To give a little bit of credit, there was a little bit where I kind of liked this past story with Jack Houston, where it kind of goes into like a period feel. And it wasn't just like, you know, the period costumes and the period setting and all that, but the first time they do it, it actually has like a period aesthetic too. Like it looks different and looks kind of older. Like you would, yeah. But we keep cutting back and forth through the whole movie from the flashback stuff from like whatever time period that was, the 40s.
The 40s.
Because he was in the war, yeah. To present, not present day, but 2007 for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe that's when the book was written or something. Because there's no significance to it being set 8 years ago. No significance whatsoever. It's not like when they used September 11th in Dear John. Or Remember Me, even. So, that aesthetic, it never really comes back. It looks like that once, kind of like, it kind of has the old feel of it, but then the rest of the time when we cut to the 40s stuff, it just looks like the rest of the movie. So they kind of tried, but then they just kind of quit. So, so you know, that happens. I mean, there's a little bit of sweetness in the Alan Alda scenes, because he's got kind of a sincerity that he brings to it for what he can. That's just the thing. You just kind of have to say that about the veteran actor that's in these kind of movies. Like, yeah, they tried their best, and it's kind of a necessity, but that is pretty much the way it works. Except for the fact that the Alan Alda scenes, because he's in a hospital, this movie would not have been complete unless it didn't have the sassy black nurse. Yes, of course this movie has the sassy black nurse in it. Why wouldn't it? That's exactly what the kind of stuff that this audience eats up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, as you can probably guess, we just kind of have, you know, little conflicts that are thrown in for absolutely no reason that can be solved just like that, but they aren't because the movie has to be over 2 hours. And we have to want them to get back together. But here's the thing. There's one conflict in this movie that's really, really frustrating. And you can tell that it's only in there for that purpose, because you have to have the conflict in there. It's when he made the bullshit joke at the art gallery. Because it's, he, she's, lives in this fancy lifestyle where she auctions off paintings and shit. And he, rides bulls. There's such a different lifestyle. There's no way this can possibly happen. They have to really defeat the odds to make this work. So, okay. So he's talking to her boss, and he doesn't like this at all. He thinks the paintings are worthless, and they don't mean anything, and he doesn't see the artistry in them, or whatever the fuck. So he makes a joke to her boss, who basically her job's on the line with, and he says, "There's more bullshit here than where I work," or something like that. And the boss laughs it off and says, "I like him," and then walks away. Which, for starters, is already mind-blowing. But they go ahead and make the scene worse. The scene could be over now. The boss laughs and says, "I like him," and then walks away. This is the part where she should go, "Oh, well, that was a close one. I mean, that was a little shitty of you to kind of put my job on the line there, but it's okay now because she didn't mind it. That was a little close. A little scolding and a slap on the wrist, and then we'll be over this." But then she starts getting pissy, and then he runs out, and then they have to go into the parking lot and have a fucking fight. Even though it was fine. And then somehow this fight, and there's no happy transition. There's no okay, this fight's ridiculous, let's make up and fuck now. They're kind of fighting, and then they're just kind of in bed the next scene. This relationship is not healthy.
No, not at all. But sadly, it's normal.
I know. But, you step into public and there they all are. But, still, this isn't no. It's not what they were looking for. This does not happen because they thought they were portraying realism. That is just not the case. I guess it's worth noting real quick. Some of the rodeo scenes were shot in Winston-Salem and throughout, North Carolina in general. Which, as you know, is where I just came from if you saw a couple of videos ago. Where I got this shirt, actually. And it's really funny because you take a tour in Wilmington that's an hour and a half long. And this guy who kind of takes on a Spielberg persona will walk you around and show you all the different filming sites. Like the bar in Blue Velvet and where Empire Records is now and all that stuff. The alleyway where Mandy Moore told Shane West that she had leukemia. I stood right where Mandy Moore was standing.
Lucky.
The building where Jennifer Aniston stripped and where the Millers. It's all there in the same area. And a lot of One Tree Hill and Dawson's Creek were there. It's the home of One Tree Hill. And the tour guide was going on a rampage because he was talking about how all the Nicholas Sparks movies film there, and he hates them. And he was talking about how, Watch Remember was here. There was a lot about Safe Haven, too. And I guess somebody there was an extra on Safe Haven. And he was telling this story about how, and yes, there is a new one coming up, The Longest Ride. And he said it with such disgust. Yes. And in my head I was saying, oh my god, this is what I gotta lay eyes on in a couple of weeks. And of course he made the joke, The Longest Ride, the title refers to boyfriends getting in the car with their girlfriends and driving to the movie theater to see this fucking thing.
Yes.
Yeah, he didn't mind using foul language either because he was like, sometimes I get kids on the tour and I can't really do that kind of stuff, but since we're all adults here, and he got to throw out the Dennis Hopper lines in Blue Velvet, but I'm getting really sidetracked now. But
I'm sure you're having more fun talking about this.
But the really funny thing, his take on the title is really funny to me. But after you've seen the movie, you start to realize something. There are 3 different ways this title can be taken. Okay? It's mentioned in dialogue by Alan Alda's character, talking about something he and his wife did. Then there's, I guess it refers to, the 8 seconds you have to stay on a bull. There's a third one that just was not in my head. Okay, I'm not that perverted, okay? It was not in my head when I went into this movie, and I just wasn't thinking about it until this very blatant edit. So, they finally it gets to a point where they bang in the shower, and then they start to bang regularly after all the shyness has passed and the first datedness of it all. And while we're getting, like, you know, it's cutting back and forth between love montages and sex montages and the stuff that they do, etc. And there's an edit where we see him on the bull and he's riding for the 8 seconds, and then there is an immediate cut to her on top of him in the throes of passion. And that's when it occurred to me that the whole reason, the whole bull riding thing, and the title itself is just one big sexual innuendo.
That's insinuating he lasts 8 seconds, and we don't know about that or not.
I would like to not know that much about Scott Eastwood, actually.
I don't ever want to know that much about anybody with the name Eastwood. Honestly.
He's got plenty of kids.
Yeah, he does.
Allison's a hot little number, isn't she?
Yeah, she's
So anyway, I've now been marked for death by Dirty Harry.
I can hear him doing that signature growl from here right now.
Yeah, he's doing that Jonah Hill movie now, so he's got... Yeah, so your review for American Sniper, and I gotta tell you, speaking of American Sniper, let me get on that real quick. When you walk into... this is just all over the place, but I always find ways to work my points back into...
It's like a Foley promo.
So anyway, speaking of American Sniper, by the way, when you sit down for a Nicholas Sparks movie, there is one exciting thing about it. You sit down, and it comes on, you see, based on the novel by Nicholas Sparks, and you're just waiting. Which of the characters is gonna die, and how many? How many now? Because it's been more than one lately. And I was just saying on the way down, it's like, I feel like this is build-up. I feel like this is foreplay until we're finally going to get to that ultimate Nicholas Sparks movie where every character dies. It's going to be amazing. But for now, we're stuck with this. And you're kind of stuck because they like to tease you. A lot of times they like to set up this, it's going to be somebody, and then it ends up being somebody else in some weird fashion. Remember when Greg Kinnear randomly got cancer in the last song?
Yeah.
That was another thing that pissed off our tour guide. He was talking about how you have every chance in the world to kill Miley Cyrus, and instead you give Greg Kinnear cancer. What the fuck's with that?
That's awesome. This tour guide sounds like how you talk.
Yeah, he was really cool. It was really fun to walk around with him for an hour and a half.
Or a censored version of me at the theater.
So, I started to think, and I had an epiphany during this movie, and I was like, the bull rider always dies. The rodeo guy always dies. You watch 8 Seconds, Luke Perry dies.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas Buyers Club, Ron Woodruff. What did he do? Yeah, and he died. And Chris Kyle in American Sniper. Bull riding kills people, and of the 3 that I mentioned, only one of them actually died bull riding.
True.
Because that's the only one that's movie it's actually about bull riding. All 3 of them are true stories too. So this shit really comes for you. So I had that in mind, and I won't tell you who dies, but I just had that on the brain.
Yeah.
Not saying that it adds up to that. I'm just saying, that was on my mind. It just seems to catch up to people. Okay. And between all of this shit, it's just a lot of filler. There's this whole subplot that comes in really late, where Jack Houston and his wife decide that she's a teacher, and there's this kid that's falling asleep in class, and he's got like really, really trashy guardians. So she takes him in, and they treat him basically like the kid in Dick Tracy.
Yeah. Oh my god. Even down to what she wears pretty much too, because it was the 40s.
And that kind of, it has a payoff later, but with its place in the movie, it's just like, okay, why was this here? And then Alan Alda says, like, and we never saw him again. Oh, okay, then. Fine. And obviously, it's one of those cases where, obviously Alan Alda's telling the really sad story about his wife. And we know he's alone now, so it's like you spend the whole movie... It's like the joke with F. Murray Abraham telling the story to Jude Law in The Grand Budapest Hotel. Mm-hmm. And every time Saoirse Ronan gets brought up, it gets really sad. So you just watch that movie waiting for the bad thing to happen to Saoirse Ronan.
It's true.
That's basically what the deal is here, too. And I love the way Grand Budapest played with that, how they kept teasing us.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, she got sick and died like 3 months after we got married. You spend the whole movie waiting for the bad thing to happen to his wife, and you don't know when it's gonna come. That's as close as you get to excitement. Oh. So, yes. And of course, they couldn't resist. If you're wondering where it is, it's the very last scene of the movie. It's the very last scene of the movie where they run off a little dock and into the water while the sun reflects off the pond, and they have a loving embrace. Which may or may not just be a flash of, hey, look what we once had. I'm not saying they both live. I'm just saying that's the last shot. So, everybody saw Atonement, because we're bringing Saoirse Ronan right back into this. And she's also in Lost River, so she's just really, really abducted this review.
Wow.
So yes, she's got Oscar buzz this year, too. So she's probably just going to be mentioned all year. I think Brooklyn was the name of her movie. It was at Sundance. I'm trying so hard to not talk about The Longest Ride in The Longest Ride review.
It's no big deal.
But, thankfully, I think we're about done here.
Nothing else to be said?
No, I think that's about it. I think I got everything. It's a Nicholas Sparks movie. What else do you need to know?
You've seen it before.
Nothing has changed here.
He's becoming self-referential. He's literally
somebody,
ripping himself off now.
When the trailer came out, I saw somebody have a comment that said, Nicholas Sparks could sue himself for plagiarism and win.
Actually, he'd probably lose. It'd be funnier that way.
I don't know. So, that's what that is. That's it.
Let us never speak of it again.
Have fun with that, if that's what you're into.
I don't think you're going to be necessarily into it. I think you might be forced to go to it.
There were a lot of women in there that were over the age of 80, I'm sure, that were just really, really... Some people just, I'm like that with genres as well. Not this one, for fuck's sake.
No.
There are genres where I'm like that, where you can give me just the same old shit and it'll be fine. And it's really funny because that's about to come up in this review as well. Yes, just everything ties together. It's so nice and neat.
We have to mention the people you were referring to. We had a Poltergeist trailer. And that was really funny to see their reaction to it.
It's like when we saw, I can't remember now. It was a movie that attracted an older audience, and we got the Rush trailer.
I remember your comment there.
And the Rush trailer was really intense.
Yeah, it was.
And I thought these people were having heart attacks. And it was on a movie that really should not have had the Rush trailer on it. It was like a really calm movie, but I can't remember which one it was now.
I gotta say one more thing before we get into the second movie. Okay, I understand when you're like 11, 12, 13 years old, seeing like a nipple for the first time, seeing nudity. I get that. Giggle, giggle, giggle. But when you're over the age of 30 or 40 years old and you see the top of someone's ass crack and it makes you giggle, why? Just why? Seriously, that doesn't make any sense to me.
We asked this question back when we saw 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, I'm asking...
I'm
asking you guys again, why? Yes. Yes, that was even worse. But no, seriously, why? It's like... It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like everyone reverts back to 13-year-old girls whenever they say, oh, giggle, giggle, giggle.
Well, but at their age, it's probably been a long time. Something like that.
It's probably a long time since I've seen someone's ass crack. Is that what you're trying to say?
Oh, they look like 70. Be nice, man.
I'm not trying to be mean to them.
Those are people's grandparents.
I'm not trying to be mean to them. I'm saying I'm not just calling them out. I'm saying everybody. It happens every time we watch a movie. When it comes to something like that, even the teenagers, they giggle too.
It's probably the awkwardness of being in public.
16-year-old girls, I hear them giggle too.
It's probably just the awkwardness of being in public and seeing nudity. You know,
like
some people, it just makes people uncomfortable.
Like Will walking the movie.
Yes. Our second movie is It Follows, finally. We're about a month late or so.
Sorry about that, guys. I told you get it eventually.
Yes. I could have seen it when I saw Furious 7 last week, but I knew we were going to get it. You know, not that I would have.
I wasn't exactly sure at this point, honestly. This was the last week we had to get it, honestly.
Because it was in, like, the top 5 box office, like, last week or the week before.
Doesn't mean anything in my theater. You know that.
So, this is one of those movies, we always have those movies now, where I know a lot of people like to think they're rare, but they're really not, where a horror movie will come out and everybody will wet their pants because they think it's a really new concept and everything. This sounds promising already. I'm already attacking it.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Hold on now.
No, I think I know where you're going with this.
Okay, now listen. Everybody gets really excited when there's a new horror movie out that tries a new concept out.
Yeah, of course.
I about turned into Tarantino when I said that. I got overexcited in my words.
Happens.
Okay. So, that's the way Tarantino talks.
I know.
Okay, so, what, basically, I remember when this, I don't remember when this premiered. Was it at Sundance or something? No, it was at Cannes.
It was Cannes.
And a lot of people started joking that it was basically, like, I guess it's supposed to be a not so subtle representation of an STD.
Pretty much.
It's a sexually transmitted paranormal entity, apparently. Is basically what it is. And that's how it's transferred. After one person has it, and then they pass it on to somebody through sex. This person is followed around by an entity that just walks like at a Michael Myers pace.
Yeah.
And if it catches you, you get twisted into... It's kind of like The Ring, but not really.
Somewhat.
It's not just your face, it's your entire body. I guess. It's really vague.
And then they take that form sometimes, too, of the person that just got killed.
I think it just takes the form of anybody.
Yeah, that's what it literally says. It could take anybody's form.
Yeah. And I started to it's kind of like when people first saw Gremlins. I kind of started to dissect the rules a little bit. And I was trying to figure out, like, let's say, because it kind of stays, like, apparently it stays with you after it has been transferred to somebody else, but it follows them. But if they kill that person, they come back for you or something. And I was starting to wonder, like, okay, let's say... I'm sorry, you're gonna have to mature up a little bit here with me to get through this, but, like, how much, I wonder, does it take to transfer? Like...
I was trying to figure that out myself.
Let's just, like, is it determined by orgasm? Or is, like, could you just, like, you know...
Oops.
Just in out once, and it's there?
I doubt it.
And what happens when, like, say, I mean, I know you both kind of have it, but it depends on who it's going to follow, but let's say, like, you know, people go more rounds. Like,
yeah.
Like,
it keeps bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, like, say they don't know they have it, okay? And, like, okay, so he transfers it to her, but what if she was, like, ready to go again immediately? Is it going back to him?
Yes.
And so forth? Or...
I would say so.
And so he's like, no, you keep it, and he has to build it up to go again? Or how does this work?
I will put the curse back in you.
Yes.
Literally.
I see this being parodied very, very soon.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of worried about.
That shit we just talked about is going to show up in a Wayans Brothers movie.
Yeah.
You know it is. Because he predetermined the joke in Annabelle, remember that?
Yeah.
So, okay. Anyway, let's talk about the opening scene. Because that's the tone setter, now that we've dissected the concept a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. So, the opening shot is really, really promising. It'd make a really great short film.
I agree.
The opening would. It's just this girl running out of a house, and I'm guessing it's a point of view shot from whatever's following her. And I thought that was really, really creepy because she's running away from the house, but then suddenly she's facing the camera and she's backing away slowly. And the camera's kind of zooming in towards her. I think we're supposed to assume we're seeing from the point of view of what follows her.
That's what I was thinking.
And then she goes over to another house, and that's when I realized it's not that lengthy or anything, but I think it's really cool also, and it's another thing that kind of establishes it as a possible point of view shot. It doesn't break.
No.
Until she drives off away from it. And then we cut again, and it's like night. So, I thought that was really effective, and it has the score going on. That's basically late 70s, early 80s horror movie score. It had a lot of the score during the climax of the original Nightmare on Elm Street is what that sounded a lot like.
Yep.
And it channels a lot of horror movies. I know it's basically the whole homage thing, because that's popular in the horror genre a lot now. And yeah, there was basically, it was getting comparisons a lot to The Babadook, because The Babadook last year was like that big horror movie that was indie, and it was like a cult movie there for a while, and then word of mouth started to make it bigger. And they're basically doing that again with this. Yeah, I get where they're coming from. I do, but and it's some of it's still. I mean, despite its original concept, there are still things that it kind of echoes. There was one when I first heard the concept, and I think I heard one trailer, and they were talking about like, you know, it'll take various forms and always be there and stuff like that. I was thinking back to Azazel and Fallen. Does anybody remember that Denzel movie?
Mm-hmm.
Where the killer was like a demon spirit, and he could possess, like, he'd possess somebody, and then he'd just have to touch another person. And there's that really awesome scene where Embeth Davidtz is running through a crowd, and it's chasing her by touching people.
That's awesome.
I thought it kind of gave me a little bit of a vibe like that. I also got a lot of The Faculty.
Yeah.
Like, I was feeling that a lot. Especially the fact that the ending takes place in a gym pool. It's like, wow, I was really getting those Faculty vibes before, but now. And there's all those homages in there. You have, there's a moment where her and her sister are, like, walking home or whatever, and it's a lot like the scenes in Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
I almost expected to hear the Halloween score. And there were more. There's a moment where the first time she realizes that she's being followed by something, or I guess this would be the second time. She's sitting in the classroom, just kind of phased out, and then she looks out the window and she sees it walking across the schoolyard or whatever. That was right out of Halloween as well.
Yep.
Like I said, I can't tell if these are homages or if they're just like, you know, intentionally or unintentionally just saying, I'm just gonna take that and put it here, and people will love it because it's throwback or whatever. And that scene goes right into an Elm Street scene where she's in the school's hallways and there's something there that only she can see. That was very, very, like her seeing Tina's body bag dragged through the school. And, God, Nightmare on Elm Street's so fucked up, it's great. But anyway, back to this. But, you know, it does have, you know, some unique approaches. I kind of liked how right in the middle of the movie there, it kind of becomes a mystery about who Hugh is, the guy that gave her to her in the first place, and how they have to like track him down, and then he kind of turns into Kevin Bacon and JFK, where they all sit in a circle and he tells them what's up in the backyard. Only that was a prison yard for Bacon, but for some reason my mind just went there.
It works.
But overall, I thought, I don't know where I stand with this. Okay, here's my problem. And I hope it doesn't sound too cheap, the way I say this. But, it's getting a lot of love for its unique idea and its unique approach and stuff like that. But the trouble with that is, because of the way it's shot and everything, there are a lot of shots that just kind of meander on her hands. And, like, the shot where she's, like, putting blades of grass on her leg for some reason. And like it's trying to be real artsy and shit. And I really, really wanted to embrace it as this unique horror movie that was trying to do something new. But I couldn't get the feeling out of my head that it didn't feel naturally unique. It felt too much like it was trying to be unique. Like it was setting out to be that way. And that's not exactly the approach you want to go for. I mean, I'm glad it's working for people. That's great and everything, but that just kind of had that. That's just kind of the feeling I had while watching it. But you know, there are those actual effective moments. The one scene where they have to open the door and the girl's there, and then the tall guy kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, that was cool.
And, you know, sometimes they look relatively normal, sometimes they look like zombies, sometimes they're missing eyes or whatever.
Most of the time they're naked.
Yeah, sometimes.
Most of the time.
The dude on the roof that will untimely.
That's great.
The guy on the roof is totally naked. He's not exactly an attractive man. He's meant to be creepy looking, obviously.
Yeah.
And we keep zooming in on him because she's kind of watching him, and it's kind of setting a tone. And Will came in because he was working, and you have to walk up and down the aisle and then go to the next theater. And as Will was walking down the aisle, we were getting closer and closer to the naked dude.
Yes.
As he was getting closer, and it was just wonderful. And he got to comment about it on his way out because we were the only ones in there.
Yeah.
At a 4:00 showing.
That's not a good sign for this movie.
Yeah, sometimes word of mouth works around here, sometimes not so much. Okay, now going back to the homages and stuff like that, and going back to the unique thing. I really, really, honestly respect a movie that tries to do a new setup, because we're always talking about how all horror movies do is the same old shit. And all genres are always doing the same old shit. But when it comes to horror, I seem to have this thing about me that I don't know who else feels this way. Hopefully, I really hope I'm not the only one. Somebody please reach out. When it comes to horror specifically, I seem to have a hard time catching on to new concepts. Like every time a horror movie that's trying a new concept out comes out, I seem to kind of have that same reaction to it. I think they just hear the voices say, "I'm so sick of rehashed horror," and they try something new, but it just becomes way too apparent that they're trying something new as opposed to an idea that they've really, really got a grasp on. Because there's still, despite the fact that this movie's being so acclaimed for how smart it is. There's still plenty of regular horror movie moments where characters make decisions and you say, but why?
Yeah.
What is this going to do? For some reason, the scene on the beach where it's coming towards her and she shoots it and it falls over, but it just stands back up and comes at her like a Terminator. That has been established that is what happens when you shoot it.
Yeah.
But for the rest of the movie, they're still trying to kill it like it's human. And that was totally lost on me. What do they gain from this? And how is this going to work suddenly? They have this big elaborate plan to lure it into a pool and electrocute it with a bunch of stuff they've brought to plug into the walls. By the way, I've never seen that many plugs in a gym before, let alone near a pool. But regardless, this was just not making sense to me. But that's just what they went with. They were just like, well, we gotta end the movie somehow. Let's just find something and then go with that. So when it comes to stuff like that, you'll notice my review for The Conjuring, for instance, where my brother apparently saw that review recently and was telling me how hilarious it was, like how much I was up James Wan's ass.
Being here in person, it's even worse.
I love The Conjuring so much
because
it took all the things from old horror movies but did great things with it. I think that's more of what I'm about. You take the old shit, but instead of rehashing it, it's really not that hard. You just take the old shit and you make it good. And that's fine. That really works. That's why it's old shit. That's why it's been used over and over and over again. Because when you do it the right way, that's what horror movies should be like. And I think that might have something to do with why new concepts it's never really something that I grab onto and really embrace. I try, and I really love when movies, want to set out to not just rehash it, but a lot of the time it just doesn't. In horror in particular, I think just making the old a little bit better is enough to be successful.
Yeah.
Because horror is not that hard to make good. It's really not.
It seems to be nowadays.
It's really, really easy to fuck up, but it's also not that hard to make good either. If you know what you're doing and have seen enough of the genre to know what works and what doesn't. For some reason, a majority of Hollywood wants to keep using what doesn't work, and nothing, I don't know.
And we've got another horror movie next week.
So, yeah. So, I guess that's what. And they still stick with the old characters. Like, I mean, this isn't me. I know it seems all over the place, but what I'm saying is, it's being praised for how unique it is. I'm saying that I like it better when they stick with the old stuff and just make it good. And now I'm kind of complaining that they're using the old horror stuff while people are still praising it. I know it's confusing, but just bear with me. You have the attractive protagonist. You have the guy that's likely going to be the hero of the situation that's always liked the protagonist and always wanted to be with her. Like Randy Meeks, for instance. Randy Meeks sure shit didn't save the day, but the character existed.
Yeah.
And still exists in a 2015 movie that's being hailed for being unique. And we have the stoner character. Yeah, mind you, we only see him like getting stoned once, but still it's enough to kind of establish like, well, he's definitely that guy.
Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, he's got the long hair and all that. And
doesn't have the awesome bong though.
So, yeah, I get what it's doing, and I'm glad that, movies are still trying and everything, but I don't know. I couldn't really embrace it the way I would have liked to, which kind of sucks, but... And that score, like, I really understand what they were doing with the score. I get it. It's really nostalgic. It makes you really feel like you're in a late 70s, early 80s movie.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, it just becomes really, really overbearing. And it's, like, nonstop. And it's like, yeah, we get that you're throwback, okay? And it's getting fucking louder as the movie goes.
I was getting ready to say, am I the one who was noticing it was getting louder?
It's like, yeah, I know, you established that, but now you've just run it straight into the ground, and... That's enough now.
And it didn't help that Furious 7 was on both sides of us during both movies.
It was the longest ride. Furious 7 being on both sides was a lot more apparent. Yeah. Because at first I thought it was storming again, because we're getting a lot of storms lately, and I was like, oh, no, I think that's just Vin Diesel's car. I remember Furious 7 having that much action. I remember a lot, but I don't remember enough to withstand the runtime of the longest ride entirely. But,
yeah, no lie.
Yeah, wait a minute, just make me wish I was in the other theater, for fuck's sake.
Same here.
But fine. Let's get to our last movie now. Our last movie also came out of Cannes last year, which is Lost River, which is Ryan Gosling's writing and directing debut. He's not in it, but he wrote and directed it, and got a cast of familiar faces that he's worked with recently. The main star of it is Christina Hendricks. And she has a son. It's the guy from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know that doesn't narrow it down, but I'm not quite sure how you say his name. I'm sorry about that. And they basically live in poverty, and each of them finds a different underworld and gets involved in really fucked up shit. Mainly when Christina Hendricks gets involved with Ben Mendelsohn, who takes her down to this creepy underworld with Eva Mendes. And then you have her son, who is basically trying to avoid Matt Smith, who is this psycho skinhead who thinks he's in Mad Max. And a love story with Saoirse Ronan may or may not be blossoming. And he throws in a whole bunch of Nicholas Winding Refn bullshit. And makes it his own. Now, okay. This movie I'm a little split on. Because it's one of those movies where I was watching it and wasn't really feeling one way or the other. But then as soon as when it was over, I started thinking about it more, and I was like, you know what? I think I kind of hate it. But now that it's been like 3 or 4 days since I saw it, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I kind of get it now a little bit, just a little bit. I kind of get what he was doing. And I kind of respect it. This is definitely one of those movies that you admire a lot more than you like. I know I hate using that, but it's just the way it is. Now, it's okay. Okay, right? I don't know. As a writer, it's kind of hard to tell because it may have been one of the because he's so close with the Refn. He may have adopted that thing of. He might have written like a whole... The movie was originally called like How to Catch a Monster, I think. And he had written it. And somebody made him change it to Lost River. I guess Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers distributed this. Not like some kind of off-brand Warner Brothers and not like, some side company that Warner Brothers owns. Warner Brothers distributed this. The Warner Brothers logo that you see in front of all of these big-budget movies is in front of Lost River. Yeah.
Wow.
So I guess it was them. So, and maybe he had this big script written out, but then suddenly, you know, once it came time to shoot it, just started picking shit out. Because that's what I was talking about. Only God Forgives is getting a lot of comparisons to that. And when I talked about it, because I had read reference script for Only God Forgives, and I thought it was really great.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, that I hate the movie. Yeah. I hate it more now than I did when I reviewed it. And it was like, he had a really great script here, and then it's like he just took everything out except for the actions and made it look really, yeah, just, you've probably seen Only God Forgives by now, you know what bullshit I'm talking about. But the thing about it is, despite all that, I do think that Gosling could be a really effective director. And it's really hard to say. I don't know if the critics scared him away, because when this played at Cannes, apparently they just fucking ripped it to shreds. And then their actors turned directors are not having luck right now. Apparently Chris Evans made a movie with Alice Eve, and I guess they got ripped up too. But I guess like in other countries like France, they're taking to it, so it's kind of hard to tell.
At least it has an audience.
I think he could be a really, really effective director, because the movie's really, really well shot. But the trouble with that is, it basically just kind of feels like you're watching a trailer for 90 minutes. It's basically what it feels like. Because you have all these really, like, you know how, like, this is why I don't watch trailers anymore. When you see a trailer, you see all the movie's really, really awesome shots, but you see them out of context.
Yeah.
You're watching the full movie in its entirety right in front of you, and you see all these awesome shots, but it still feels like the shots have no context.
It's not good.
You know, just to point out some stuff, like, when the kid first sees Matt Smith in the scene, it's him just kind of standing there, and then he turns around in slow motion, and you see a burning bike wheel past him by itself. It's like, well, I bet that made a great trailer shot, but it still doesn't make fucking sense in the context of this movie. And then there's stuff like, Saoirse Ronan's room is entirely made up of, like, purple lights. But then, she lives in, like, a really run-down shack-type place, so we get that outside shot where it's this striking image of a really, really run-down poorhouse, but there's like this luminous purple light leaking out of it. It's really, it's a cool shot, but yeah, just, I don't know. Now, performance-wise, Christina Hendricks is really good. Eva Mendes is really good at that kind of, you know, she'll lure you in, but not tell you, you know, what fucking evils you're gonna see. She basically lures her into a David Lynch world. And then we have Ben Mendelsohn. Just as I had guessed. Because, you know, they were partners in crime in The Place Beyond the Pines, he and Gosling. I imagined there would be kind of a buddy-buddy relationship here. And as soon as I learned that Ben Mendelsohn was in this movie, number one, I was able to immediately predict what kind of role he was playing, and I was right. And number two, just as I had predicted, no matter the quality of the movie, Ben Mendelsohn is amazing in this movie. I love it. Somebody put it really, really well. I saw a review recently where they said, you take the two characters in Blue Velvet, Dennis Hopper's Frank Booth and Dean Stockwell's Ben, where Frank Booth was the really psychotic guy that just went off the wall and everybody was afraid of. And then you had Ben, who was like the really effeminate guy who, like, you know, sang show tunes and just acted really fucking weird. It's basically a combination of the two. And yes, there is a scene where Ben Mendelsohn sings that's really, really fucking weird and feels really out of place. But you're just so taken by it. And it's awesome. There's a scene at the end where he dances for no goddamn reason, but you're just like, wow, this is weirding me out, but in a really cool way. Ben Mendelsohn is where it's at in this movie. Not to take anything away from Christina Hendricks or the other main actor. Matt Smith is interesting. I didn't expect this kind of role out of him, though I haven't seen him in much. I'm sure shit not a Doctor Who fan. But yeah, he really thinks he's in a Mad Max movie. He really thinks he's a Mad Max villain. He's got like a car with no roof that has a recliner in the back of it that he keeps as like a throne. Like you think he's in Escape from New York or something. like Isaac Hayes' limousine with the chandeliers on the front of it. And they just throw in the place where Eva Mendes takes Christine Hendricks to work is this really weird place where they like. On the surface it looks like a strip club, but then the showcase is it's just makeup effects. But it's like people doing really graphic, disgusting things to themselves, like self-mutilation. Like, there's a point in time where she, like, cuts the skin off of her face and peels it off, and everybody, like, cheers. It's weird shit like that. The, like, waitresses, I guess, walk around, and one of them is wearing one of the giant skull... Like, this isn't in the trivia. It's just, I just know. Like... Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be brought up eventually. It's not like... It doesn't seem like a replica or anything. It seems like Gosling was in Warner Brothers'... I just put that together, of course. They were basically going through Warner Brothers' old shit. One of the waitresses in this place wears one of the giant skull heads from Batman Returns that the Red Triangle gang was wearing.
Nice. When
they attacked the first time out of the big present. That big skull that like comes into frame and looks around and then drives off. She's wearing that.
That's awesome.
So, yes. And Barbara Steele's in this movie. She was in a lot of those really, really old campy movies, like The Long Hair of Death. I think she was the one in She-Beast. Those really, really old B, like Z movies, really, that I've actually seen. So that was really cool. She was supposed to be... I'm drawing a blank. But Barbara Steele was the replacement. But I thought she was a really cool addition because she kind of gave that throwback vibe. This is another one of those movies that kind of feels like, you know, it's doing some weird 70s thing. So yes, it's one of those movies where it'll grow on you in your mind if you let it. I said that about Only God Forgives before, I think. But Karen Black, that was it, yeah. And then, yeah. So, yeah, it's a throwback in pretty much the same way Barbara Steele is. So, yeah, I said that about Only God Forgives before, and it turned out to not be right. But I feel like this, because Gosling seems like a really promising director. I think he could really do something special in the long run. Like how I think all reference movies are bullshit, but I think Drive is a masterpiece.
Yes.
Just in the middle of his filmography, weirdly enough. I think Gosling could have a Drive in his future. I mean, he does because he's the star of Drive. But I mean, as a director.
Yeah, I understand.
So, yeah, right now I'm just kind of... I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I was going to give this 1.5 when this review started, but I think I'll give it a 2. So we can do that now.
Alright, so, longest ride.
Longest ride, 1.5. The only reason it doesn't go down to 1 is because it's not like best of me levels of unbearable. Not quite. I mean, it tries.
It's
it tries
really
to get there,
close.
But I mean, what I felt during the best of me was just something I never want to feel again. That movie scarred me.
Yeah, It Follows.
2.
And you're gonna go with 2 for Lost River, correct?
Yes.
All right, next week. Yeah, we got a busy week ahead of us. Monkey Kingdom may get pushed to next week.
I think that's probably pretty likely.
That's a good chance.
Because I really didn't think we were going to get Channel 44. That shocks me.
We got a Thursday night showing of It's Weird.
Okay. All right.
So
I'm all for Tom Hardy. That's cool.
Yeah, same here.
I'm excited to see.
Everything next week. We have Unfriended. We have Child 44, and then there's something else coming out too. We don't need to be spoken of.
He doesn't like the Kevin James.
No, I don't like Kevin James.
I'm not really a fan either, especially after Here Comes the Boom. Jesus Christ.
Oh my God, I forgot about the existence of that horrible movie.
Here Comes the Boom is so much worse than Paul Blart. No, by a mile. By hundreds of miles. I never told you this, I'm going to confess it now.
Go ahead.
When I was staying with my brother, when he lived a couple of hours from here, and he worked at DirecTV, so he had all the channels, I watched Paul Blart again.
I'm sorry. It
was the only thing on, and I was like, you know what? It's pretty harmless. It's pretty harmless, so I'm not dreading it the way you are, but
you understand why I'm dreading it.
I am positive it'll be worse, but
yes.
I'm just saying I'm not dreading it the way you are. So.
I am. Next week's gonna.
That's why
suck.
I said Unfriended should be first.
It's the only thing I'm actually looking forward to, weirdly
Okay,
enough.
so, and we'll watch Child 44 at 7 o'clock because everybody will be at the theater, but nobody will be watching Child 44.
Exactly.
Yeah. It'll be like watching It Follows Today with fucking nobody.
Speaking of that, quick programming note. Tomorrow, Gaming with Ash returns. Sunday, brand new Versus. Cryptic Comment is Divorce. And we'll kick into wrestling for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So, of course, Sip and Snack on Thursday, and Friday, back to AJ's movie reviews. So, that's how we do it here on Pop. So, AJ, any parting words?